The Fed just admitted in its own minutes that AI is driving inflation higher, and its own chairman publicly disagrees. That's not a media narrative. That's an institutional contradiction sitting right in the middle of your rate cut timeline. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how much AI inflation Goldman Sachs has already quantified and when they say it peaks, why the Fed's rate tool is structurally the wrong instrument to fight it, and what the Warsh-Williams split actually means for when cuts arrive, and how far away that actually is. If you don't understand where this inflation is coming from, you'll keep buying every dip expecting rate cuts that aren't coming, and you'll be wrong about that timeline every single quarter. Let's get into it. Here's the number Goldman Sachs put out. AI is already adding 0.2% year-over-year core PCE right now, and by November of 2026, they say it hits 0.5%. Half a point. That's not a rounding error. That's a real number that moves rate decisions. Now here's the part that sounds like a contradiction. AI is supposed to be deflationary. Long run, it probably is. But right now, in the build-out phase, it's running the opposite direction. And this isn't coming from places that you'd normally look. It's not wages. It's not rent. It's coming through three specific channels. All three trace back to the same thing: the physical infrastructure it takes to run AI at scale. Channel 1 is memory prices. Some types of memory are up more than tenfold since January of 2025. Not 10%, 10 times. Channel 2 is software subscriptions. Microsoft raised 365 prices in January 2026, the first increase since 2013. Goldman expects the software and accessories price index to hit roughly 30% year-over-year growth by November. Channel 3 is electricity. Data centers are already consuming about 6% of total U.S. power demand. By 2030, that number hits 11%. And the spillover from that demand is already adding 8 basis points to year-over-year core PCE. So that's the Goldman number and where it comes from. 0.2% hitting core PCE right now. 3 channels: memory, software, and electricity, all 3 pointing up. And the forecast says 0.5% by November of 2026. Now here's what I want you to track. Every one of those channels, memory, software, electricity, traces back through a specific chain. A chain that starts in a chip factory in South Korea and ends on your electricity bill. Next, I'm going to show you exactly how that chain works, end to end. Let's follow the money, because this chain is specific, and once you see it end to end, you'll understand why it's so hard to break. It starts in South Korea. Korean chip makers, DRAM manufacturers, are running at capacity and making record profits. They're producing memory chips that go into every AI server on the planet. Memory prices for certain types are up more than tenfold since January 2025. That cost moves into every device, every server, every cloud service you use. Microsoft felt it. They raised 365 prices in January 2026, the first time since 2013. 12 years of flat pricing. Then AI comes along and they raise it. They cited energy and memory costs. Data center electricity spillovers are adding 8 basis points to year-over-year US core PCE right now. Small number, but it's already in the data, and it's going up as data center capacity keeps expanding. Korean DRAM manufacturers hit record profits. Memory prices go up tenfold. Microsoft raises 365 prices for the first time in 12 years. Data centers pull more power. Your electricity bill goes up, and all of it flows into core PCE. That's the transmission chain. It's real, it's quantified, and it's running right now. Now here's the problem. Not a single link in that chain responds to the Fed funds rate. So the question isn't just where this inflation is coming from. The question is whether the Fed can actually do something about it. And the answer is going to surprise you. The Fed has one primary tool. It raises the short-term rate to slow demand. You make borrowing more expensive, people spend less, prices come down. That works on demand-side inflation. But what's happening here isn't demand-side, it's supply-side inflation. And that's a completely different problem. Tell me how raising the Fed funds rate fixes Korean chipmaker profits. Tell me how a 25 basis point hike slows DRAM production decisions being made in Seoul. It doesn't. The rate tool doesn't reach that far. And the electricity demand coming from data centers? That's infrastructure build-out. Trillion-dollar capital commitments made years in advance. The Fed can't undo those commitments by keeping rates higher. That money is already deployed. Here's what makes this a major institutional moment. The FOMC meeting minutes, the official record of Fed deliberations, just issued the first ever warning about AI-driven inflation. Not in a speech, not in a blog post. The minutes, the official record. Most officials see inflation remaining elevated because of strong AI-related demand. New York Fed President John Williams said it directly. AI demand-driven inflation isn't something the Fed can look through. Those are his words. He's saying we can't ignore it, and we can't call it temporary, and we can't cut past it. So here's the mismatch. The Fed's rate tool is built for demand-side problems. AI inflation is a supply-side problem. The FOMC just officially acknowledged it exists. And Williams, the New York Fed president, says they can't look through it, which means that the rate cut timeline now has a supply-side anchor that monetary policy has no clean way to remove. But here's the thing. The chairman of the Federal Reserve doesn't agree with that. And that contradiction, that specific disagreement, is the most important signal. Fed Chair Warsh holds the opposite view from Williams. Warsh has called AI a significant disinflationary force. He's in the camp that believes that the productivity gains from AI will more than offset the near-term infrastructure costs, that AI ultimately brings prices down, not up. Williams says don't look through it. Warsh says AI is disinflationary. These aren't minor differences. These are opposite conclusions about the same data, coming from the top of the same institution. And here's why that split matters. When there's no consensus at the Fed on what's causing inflation, you don't get a clear rate path. You get ambiguity. And ambiguity means the market keeps repricing cut expectations, which means you get volatility every time a data print comes in hotter than expected, because the market can't anchor to a single Fed narrative. If Williams' view prevails inside the FOMC, cuts don't just slip one quarter. That means the Fed stays handcuffed materially longer than the market is currently pricing. Not one delay, a series of them. So here's what the Warsh-Williams split actually tells you. There's no internal Fed consensus on whether AI inflation is transitory-ish or structural. Until that gets resolved, and Goldman's November deadline is going to force that answer, rate cut timing is genuinely uncertain in a way that the market isn't fully pricing. If you're positioned around rate cuts, you need to know which view wins, because the wrong bet means you're long duration or long rate-sensitive sectors into a Fed that's stuck and knows it. The market sold the AI revolution as deflationary. Long run, maybe it is. But right now, in the phase we're actually in, the build-out phase, it's running the opposite direction. Goldman quantifies it as 0.5% of core PCE by November. The FOMC just officially acknowledged the problem for the first time ever, and the Fed's own chairman publicly disagrees with the officials who wrote those minutes. That's a live contradiction with a hard deadline attached to it. You now understand why the Fed is caught in a structural bind. AI-driven inflation is building inside the economy, while its own chairman publicly contradicts the officials who documented it. That's not just a policy story. That's an institutional fracture with a deadline. But knowing the Fed is trapped isn't the same as knowing what price is actually doing right now, or when this contradiction becomes tradable. Here's what that understanding also doesn't give you: the truth about price. It gives you a narrative, and narratives matter. But price is what tells you whether the narrative is true or not. The measured move is a framework for knowing the direction of price. It tells you whether this narrative is being confirmed by price or not. If you act on a story like this without that framework, you could be right about everything you just heard and still be on the wrong side of a trade for days, weeks, or even months. That framework is what I teach. The traders in my community don't get trapped by bearish narratives. They know where a trend fails, and until it does, until price confirms it, they will trade a bullish trend until it fails, even if it is against a bearish narrative. They have a framework for reading it themselves. That's the process I teach every day at eminiaddict.com.